Dark bleatings, everybody! Happy New Year's Eve! What a decade this year has been. So, to end off the year, I wanted to do a Happy Goat Horror, the story so far kind of video. Carry on my wayward son! I started the website first, happygoathorror.com, just as a place where I could basically post reviews of the books I like, and it's really turned into a place to focus on indie horror specifically, so I've been having a really great time with that. But I've got to read and discover new favourite indie horror authors that I don't know if I would have come across them or managed to get around to their books if it wasn't for having these open review requests. So it's really broadened my horizons for horror. I've read all different types of horror that I might not have picked up where I thought maybe it wouldn't be my cup of tea or something. So yeah, that's been a great time. We also launched social media accounts, so Instagram and Facebook I set up at the same time as I opened the website. The Facebook page has only about 200 followers, but the articles, I usually just use that to share what's on the website, and then so people share directly from the website quite a lot, or they share from the post. So I think that the reach goes a little bit further than the actual follow account, but to be honest, I'm not really concerned with follow account. It would be lovely to have, you know, millions of followers and everything, but I would prefer a small organic following of people who've decided to subscribe some way to Happy Goat Horror because they genuinely like the content, rather than me trying to sort of like, you know, market the site or something. So it's really nice because the followers we have are quite engaging, and you know, I talk to people in messages and comments quite often, every day really, either on Instagram, YouTube, the blog, or in private messages on Facebook or in comments. So I feel like I've, you know, fashioned myself a little sort of second horror family out of it, a goat tribe if you will. So it's been really, really nice. We've got about 1,100 followers on Instagram, and same thing there. Yeah, all our followers there are people who've just come across the account and they've liked it, I guess. So it's been really, really nice. And I recently launched a TikTok, but I am still getting to grips with that. I reluctantly did that because I'm old and I've got old person mentality, and it's a new fandangled thing that I didn't really want to go near because it's all video content and I'm very pressed for time. So video content is hard for me sometimes to make a really regular habit out of, in the way that social media kind of requires it. But I think I've got a few hundred on there at the moment, but we'll see how that goes. I'll bear with me while I try and figure out TikTok, because I really still don't understand quite how it works. On the blog, I think we got about 100 followers. Over on YouTube, which we launched 8 months ago, I think we have about 360 subscribers there. So I know that all of these numbers sound really small, and maybe there are things that I could do to change my content to up our followers, and there are things within reason that I am trying to do. I'm trying not to my way through so many videos. I'm trying to stay more on point when I'm talking about things. I try to make sure that the written content that I post is worth reading and of good quality, things like that. But most of all, everything we post anyway is something that I'm really passionate about. And to this date, I really haven't looked at the website analytics or the analytics on YouTube. And the reason for that is, which like that might sound a bit strange if I'm trying to sort of grow my online presence, but I'm worried that if I start bogging myself down in the analytics, it's going to change how I want to make the content. I don't want to start making content for the sake of it to try and get views, if that makes sense. I would rather have a smaller following that enjoy what I enjoy making, rather than try and tailor what I'm making to try and appeal to everyone. So maybe the goat tribe will stay teeny tiny, but I appreciate everyone that's here. I really love making the content on the website, here, everywhere, and it's really nice to have people to talk about things with. So thank you for being here, and I'm gonna, you know, try to improve what I'm doing, but I'm not gonna start going out of my way to try to make content, you know, for the masses or anything, because I guess horror is kind of a niche thing anyway, and if I'm focusing on books, that's another level of niche. So yeah, we'll just see how that keeps going. So the YouTube channel, hello, where you are right now, I post book content by myself, so that's never been book reviews, but I am planning to move into doing more specific book reviews. It's always listy things like ranking every Stephen King book, ranking every Adam Nevill book, my top vampire books, etc. And then we also have Let's Play videos where we play horror video games, and by we I mean myself and GamerGoat, who's my brother Mikey, who I love very dearly, and I really love spending that time with him. We usually do 2 videos a week for Let's Plays and then 1 book video. So our stats are what we've posted so far. I don't know about social media posts. I don't think anyone would care about the number of posts I've done there, but on the website so far in a year and 4 months, we have posted 194 things. 106 of those were book reviews, and then the other 88 were articles, author interviews, author spotlights, and special features, and a couple of guest posts as well by other people that contributed to the site for us, which was really nice. On YouTube, we've been going 8 months and we have posted 90 videos. Most of those were gaming videos, but I'm hoping to up the ante on the book videos, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a couple of minutes. We also give out awards, which is something that I really enjoy doing, but I have to keep them few and far between because I don't make any money from Happy Goat Horror on any avenue at the moment. I wish I did, because then I could put back in. So I'd love to give out like 10 awards a year, but I just can't afford to. So last year we did a best novella of 2022 because we run Novella November, and that was won by Mark Towse for Nana, which if you haven't read but you enjoy folk horror style stuff that with a dash of comedy, it's absolutely hilarious. It really gets my goat, as Nana would say. And then we also awarded a best book of 2022, and the winner was Adam Nevill, and it was for 2 books, but obviously they're both written by him, so he would have won either way. And then this year we're giving away our first ever Outstanding Contribution to Horror award, and the recipient of that is Justin Park, who runs Sinister Horror Company, which unfortunately is going out of business in January. So, oh, hi Thor. Sorry, I got a cat intruder. So Justin Park has been a beloved member of the horror community for quite some time. He's been running Sinister Horror Company, which is an indie horror press. They put out such great books, and they're a real staple of the horror community, so everyone is really sad to see it go. But Justin, as it turns out, is also quite a talented burgeoning filmmaker. So I'm really excited to see what he does next. I felt like he deserved this award because not only has he been single-handedly, for most of the time it's been open, running Sinister Horror Company, but the quality of the books he's put out has always been very consistent. I think he's always very fair. I've been an author published by Sinister Horror Company, and I found him very fair and pleasant to work with. Justin has spent an untold amount of hours and effort putting these books together, formatting, editing, releasing, hiring cover designers, all of this, and I only recently learned what it's like to be on that side of things. I've got some experience formatting and editing now, and I did not realise how time consuming, how mentally draining it is. How much goes into it, all of the logistics, releasing stuff, getting a printer or going through Amazon, setting up the Kindle version of the book, getting an audiobook, all of that stuff. It is so much, and he's been doing this on his own, and somehow every award season Sinister Horror Company just hasn't had a look in. And it's not to say that the people who were nominated for all these various awards didn't deserve it or anything, but I just think it's such a shame that even though everyone acknowledges Sinister Horror Company for the contribution it's made, it's kind of got passed over in all these official capacities. And then it occurred to me, wait, I give out awards now, so I realised that we've got a small following, that Happy Goat Horror isn't, you know, the Bram Stoker Awards or anything like that, but for what it is worth, I really wanted to give Justin this award, and everyone that I've spoken to agrees with me on it. So just want to say, you know, congratulations Justin Park on winning Outstanding Contribution to Horror from Happy Goat Horror this year, and thank you for the years of great books and friendship and all your advice and everything that you do, and we hope that you won't vanish from the book community because everyone missed you at that last convention. So that's what I have to say about that. So going forward in 2024, I have some big plans for Happy Goat Horror. We'll be making some changes. I'm going to have to reschedule some things like my entire life to fit all this in, but I'm working on it. So I'm going to work a lot harder on the TikTok and Instagram marketing for the books I read, because I'm very out of sync at the moment with, I'll post a book review on the website and then the books I post about on social media are nothing to do with the one I did on the website. So I think I'm going to try and do like an overall promotion for a couple of days on all the platforms whenever I do spotlight an author's work. And I would like to be more active on TikTok with the videos. I was feeling quite burned out, to be honest, towards the end of this year. So I do have an idea of what I would specifically like to use TikTok for, and that is, as well as promoting authors' books, and I'm going to try and think of some like fun creative ways to do that, because it's, you know, visual format, not written. I would also like to give some advice to aspiring authors who are looking for reviews, like the do's and don'ts of pitching to reviewers, because I'm on this side of it obviously, and some other things that I've learned over time. So I'm going to kind of use it as like a sort of like dual little tool for authors, if that makes any sense, and I'd like that to carry over into my Instagram as well. On YouTube, I'm going to be expanding the book content, so as well as my regular Sunday videos, which are going to be moving to a different day, so my things like ranking an author's books or my favourite zombie books or whatever, I'm also going to do a weekly wrap-up and with book reviews of what I've actually read that week, so there's a bit more in-depth conversation about the books I've been paying attention to. And we are also planning on doing horror film reviews and that kind of content, and by we I mean myself and my brother. We spend most of our free time together talking about films, very often films that we hate or films that we loved until the last scene, and then we start ripping them to pieces because we're jolly. But yeah, we thought, why not turn those into videos as well, because those conversations sometimes go on forever, and they have been the centre of many a humorous rant from my brother, which I just think that the internet deserves to see. So I'm really looking forward to do that. We don't have a time frame on that at the moment because I film all of the book videos on my iPhone. We don't have camera equipment or, you know, really special editing software. I don't even think I have a computer that I could put editing software on where it would still run okay. I edit everything with CapCut on my phone. So we're looking into the logistics of doing it. So let's get into a couple of problems and the workarounds. So my major problem at the moment is that when we started the site, there was me, Goat Leader, Jolly Goat and Angry Goat that regularly wrote reviews. Jolly Goat and Angry Goat have just trotted off into the sunset. It is just me now, and so the review requests have really got on top of me because it's quite a lot when I'm taking on every single book. We do have a couple of guest reviewers, but they're very infrequent because I can't pay anyone to write for the site, so I'm not going to try and hold anyone to like a review schedule or send them books and be like, write a review of this. It's very casual in that if you want to contribute to the site, and by the way, the door is open for anyone who would like to post book reviews or articles there. I'm trying to build a bit more of a community and a hub, so I'm really sorry that I can't offer, you know, monetary compensation at the moment, which is why I haven't approached people asking for articles, even though I used to write for a number of websites and they weren't paying gigs, but I just had an absolute blast. But I just feel weird about asking people to do that for me for some reason. But yeah, the door is open if anyone would like to contribute. I will not hold you to a schedule. I won't make any demands of you whatsoever. It's very much a sort of swinging door. You come in and out as you please. If you'd like to be a regular contributor, we can make you a little goat profile if you like. But yeah, I would very much like this to be more of a community space rather than just me bleating at everyone on my own all the time. But as it stands, let's assume that nobody else wants to guest on there and it's just me doing all the reviews. At the moment, I've had to close my review requests because I am absolutely swamped. I think I've got something like 30 to 40 novels still pending, and I never refuse a book review request, or like because I think I won't like the book or something, because some people are really great writing books but then they're not great at pitching, and you never know what you're gonna like. I've discovered a lot of subgenres that I'd never picked up before doing this, so I never say no to a writer based on anything other than I've had to just generally close requests. But that does of course mean that I am now inundated. I want to promote work for everyone, but I just do not have enough hours in the day, and I can no longer even offer a reasonable time frame. The last few requests I've accepted, I've had to say I don't know when I can get to it. I'm so sorry. So I've had to think of a way around this, because it really stresses me out and makes me feel so guilty that I have a huge stack of books that I haven't got to yet. If you're an author that has sent me something and you have yet to see a review appear, it is coming. I will not drop you off the list. I apologise for the wait, but yeah, it's just me on my lonesome, and it's very, very difficult to find the time. I'm an extremely busy person. I've got so many things going on outside of Happy Goat Horror that I find it really, really hard. So the way I thought I could deal with that is that when I know that I'm not going to be able to get to reading the book for quite some time, I would like to offer writing promotional pieces for it instead. So maybe we can have a mini interview with the author, just information about the book. If people have got book trailers, I'm happy to host those. If people want to write their own pieces promoting the work, I can host it on the website and share it on my social media. I would just like to open the site up to more types of promotion besides just the book reviews, to make sure that authors that have requested a spotlight of some kind get one, and I can help put the word out about the book even if I haven't had time to get to it yet. So I'm gonna start offering that as an alternative for now, and then just see if I can get on top of the requests so that I can open them back up. So as well as horror authors, I would also like to help promote the work of other horror creators that aren't necessarily writing books. So I'm talking about photographers that do sort of like dark photography, stuff with horror leanings, you know, stuff that you could, you know, see as a horror piece. Artists that do any sort of horror art. Cover artists, if you're a book cover artist and you're looking for authors as clients, and people with Etsy stores that create things. So I'm going to use this as an example, and Alice doesn't know I'm featuring this in this video. She hasn't asked me to do this, but this is a creator whose work I already really love and buy, and I can personally vouch for the quality of it. So people with Etsy stores that make cute things like this, for example. This is from The Ghost and the Pumpkin, run by Alice Bazaar. She's so talented, man. So I have a couple of really cute little pumpkins from her. I also have, I believe this is called a wisp, this little ghosty fella. I can't tell if I love this little dude more than the pumpkins, or equally I just love them. And then for my wedding, which she wasn't even able to attend in the end, but she custom made 2 Pennywises, an old and a new one. I've got the new one here, but the Tim Curry style one my husband stole. We had one each. So as an indie author trying to promote my own books, I am very, very uncomfortable with sort of like self-marketing. I'm fine with shouting into the sky about everyone else's work, but my work, I find it really hard. I feel like I'm spamming people if I keep posting about it or talking about it, so I'm reluctant. So to that end, I would like to offer any creator that creates anything that a horror fan might enjoy a space on Happy Goat Horror to advertise. What I would like to do is set up just a separate page with like all of my favourite horror brands and creators. I can write a little sort of like introductory piece explaining what the business is, or what the sole trader is, or whatever, the Etsy store, couple of pictures, and then links to wherever you sell your stuff. I don't want to take a commission, I don't want a piece of the money or anything like that. I just want to give you another space to advertise your stuff. So if anyone's interested in that, please do get in touch. We can set that up straight away. I would eventually like to have Happy Goat Horror merch, but I don't want to just sell stuff for the sake of it to try and make money. I'm trying to think up something that I would really enjoy creating and putting out first, like something that I would personally like to buy. So that's sort of in the pipeline, probably a lot further along, but for now I would really love to help spread the word for other creators, because I know it's very difficult to market your own stuff and you have to spend so much time on the internet. So if I can offer any help in that regard, I would love to do that. So you can look at that. So for those of you who aren't creators but you like to shop for horror stuff, then that will be available on the website as soon as possible in 2024. Okay, now I'm going to move on to some highlights and activities that I did this year that I really enjoyed as part of, you know, my goating activities. So obviously I touched on this, getting to discover new indie writers that I might not have picked up the books of, otherwise I might not have heard of them. I've discovered so many writers, people like Mark Towse that won Best Novella last year. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'd ever have come across Mark Towse if it wasn't for opening review requests there. And so that has been, so getting to discover and have new favourite authors has been like an absolute highlight, because my favourite hobby really is reading, and I spend as much time as I possibly can doing that, so that's been great. Also, I attended a number of conventions this year, which I really love writing and book conventions. I used to just go to a lot of horror cons, and then I would have some bookish friends at those, because you have people trading, so a lot of authors will trade at these things. But the book and writing specific conventions are just different, so I get to just travel somewhere, stay in a hotel for a couple of days normally, and then just socialize with all of my writer pals that I normally only get to interact with on the internet. It's really nice to sit and have in-person conversations with people, attend book launches, you know, show up in person to support people for things. I always say I'm not going to buy any more books at these things because I've got so many on my TBR, but inevitably I always end up, you know, breaking my back trying to carry all my new books back to the car when I gotta go home. So as well as getting to spend time with my friends and people I've known for a longer time at these things, I got to meet a lot of new people this year. But the difference this year for me was the really insanely flattering thing that happened a few times, where someone would come up to me and be like, "Hi, Happy Goat Horror," and it was just so nice, because I thought, oh, I can make friends with this as well. So, and the really nice thing about that for me was that, as I said, I don't really look at my analytics at all, so I have no idea what the reach of Happy Goat Horror is, and beyond the people who are actively engaging that I talk to and I know their names, people who are, you know, active on a regular basis, interacting with whatever I'm posting, I don't know beyond that who's reading the stuff, picking up books that I've recommended or anything like that. So getting to talk to people that like knew me because of the review site, and people saying, "Oh, I picked up this Dave Jeffrey book because you went on about it so much," or something, it just made me feel so good, because the aim of the website and for Happy Goat Horror in general is to promote indie horror work. So it was just really nice to hear that people have enjoyed anything I've said and then sort of valued my opinion and picked up a book. So it was just really nice. That made me feel like I'm actually doing something worthwhile. Sorry, I'm a bit embarrassed mentioning it, because I don't want to sound like I'm afraid of that this is going to come out wrong or something, but I guess what was super nice about it, what's super nice about that for me is that I'm really trying so hard to promote indie work. So knowing for a fact that people have actually picked up books based on my recommendations, and that indie authors have had a few sales because of me bleating on and on about this stuff, made me feel, I don't know, that just makes me feel like I'm actually contributing something to a community that I really love, that's like embraced me and looked after me and been great to me. And I'm an indie author myself, and I know how hard the marketing side is, so that, yeah, I don't know, it just made me feel like incentivized to, like, you know, put out even more book reviews and read even more books, and you know, get a better handle on the social media so I can do more promoting. I think I spend easily an equivalent amount of hours doing Happy Goat stuff per week as I do working my full-time job. So I really do pour like every spare second I have into this. So it was just nice to know that there was like a point to it beyond me just sort of like raving about books I love into the ether, you know. Something else that's been really lovely for me this year is I think I was invited onto 3 podcasts. Well, I say invited, I was invited onto 2. WRITEOPOLIS, I was invited by Kit Power, and I just got to talk to that gang for over an hour about, you know, all stuff book and horror and TV, and it was just such a great time. I'd love to go back on that podcast. If anyone's watching involved in the podcast, I'd love to go back onto that one. It was just such a great time. I was also invited onto Eric Smith's YouTube channel, and we talked about The Mist. We compared sort of the book to the movie adaptation, and that was a really fun time. And this is another thing and this is what I mean about getting to meet people through Happy Goat Horror and then making friends with them, because I was watching Eric's channel anyway, I was already subscribed to it, so it's really flattering to be invited onto a podcast or a channel that you already really enjoy watching, because then you get to be a part of it. And since then I've been referring to ERIK as my YouTube bestie, and yeah, I just made a really nice friend there, very nice person. Hello YouTube bestie. So the third and final podcast of this year that I managed to wheedle my way onto was George Daniel Lee's Our Lives in Horror series on YouTube. I'll link all of the channels I've mentioned in the description, by the way, so you can check them all out. So George is, I just love him, and I discovered him because I'm a huge Kit Power fan, and Kit Power used to write the My Life in Horror article series on GINGERNUTS of Horror. Absolutely unbelievably good non-fiction series about how certain things from his childhood, growing up, teen years, adult years, sort of shaped his life and his horror taste and everything. Just so interesting. And then he handed it off to George, and they did this really great live sort of like metamorphosis thing on YouTube, which was, oh my god, I was screaming, I was so excited. And I thought, fair play to George for taking that on, because following in the footsteps of someone like Kit Power is, I would be way too daunted to do that myself, because Kit is so talented and such a great writer. I don't think that I could do that series justice like he did, but George is doing an absolutely phenomenal job of it, and I've been listening to his podcasts and following his YouTube channel since then, and he is so graceful and intelligent and interesting and engaging, and I just love to listen to him talk. So I really wanted to be on the podcast so I could talk to him. So I messaged him and asked, and he graciously accepted me as a guest, and we talked for 2.5 hours, and then we're like, we're gonna have to call this a day now. But it was an amazing time. So getting to be a part of other people's creative endeavours in the form of podcasts and YouTube content has been really, really nice for me. When I first started the channel, and especially YouTube, if you look at my first posted video now, I'm way more awkward than I was, and I'm still not completely comfortable on camera, but I would have been really, really shy about going on a podcast a few years ago, but now I really enjoy it. So those are sort of like personal highlights for me. I would like to think I'm growing a little bit as a person and a creator. And now on to some sort of personal achievements that are still book related. So this year I got to work as an editor for the first time ever and be involved in the behind the scenes process of putting an anthology together. It's called The Perfectly Fine Neighbourhood, and it's based on a novel called The Perfectly Fine House by Stephen Kosaniewski and Wiley Young. So the submission call for this anthology was that it's set in a world where ghosts are real and they're just everywhere, and there are certain rules for them and whatnot. So I've submitted to a lot of anthologies in my life, but I have never ever been on the other side reading the submissions and deciding who goes into the book and everything. And oh my gosh, it is way harder to decide those things than I ever dreamed. So getting to be on the other side of putting an anthology together like that has taught me one of the greatest lessons that I have ever learned about being an indie author, and it's this: I will never ever again take it personally or doubt my own work if I don't make it into an anthology. And that's not to say, oh, I'll just, ignore the rejection and assume that my story's wonderful. Nothing like that. But there are so many factors that go into deciding an anthology lineup that I didn't know. I'd never considered it when I'm submitting to these things. If I got a rejection, I just think, oh, I guess my story wasn't good enough. But there's only so much space, obviously. Like, say there were 10 spaces, we had a whole slew of ghost detective stories. That was a really popular sort of subgenre, like ghost detective, and we couldn't just have all of the great ones in the book, otherwise the whole book would have just been nothing but ghost detective. So we had to pick one, and we had at least 4 or 5 that were all totally worthy and deserving of being in there. And it took us, there were 3 of us, obviously myself, Stephen and Wiley, deciding the lineup, and we were on a Skype call for hours trying to muddle through this, because it gets even more difficult when each one of us has a different favourite, but our top 3, all 3 of us had the same top 3. It was a nightmare. And then outside of subgenre, theme, what if there are two great stories but they got really similar endings, things like that. So yeah, that has really taught me how not personal it is to not make it into an anthology, and it's given me more confidence to just keep resubmitting things that have been rejected from places, because surely it'll find a home somewhere else, you know. If my story's not absolute crap, you know, that's happened a few times as well. But then another sort of like professional book related thing that happened for me this year is I finally released another book. It's been 7 years since I put out my first short story collection, Corpsing, with Sinister Horror Company, and in the interim I lost confidence in myself. I was submitting to anthologies, I was getting things occasionally published, I wrote a lot of non-fiction in that time, but something happened and I lost, like, it destroyed my self-esteem, and I couldn't bring myself to write anything for such a long time. And I feel stupid for that in hindsight, because, you know, I'm usually quite good with rejection and knocks, but this was should I just tell you this story? Go on, it'll only take me a minute. So as well as all of like my creative endeavors, I have some fairly lofty academic goals, and I love academia, and one of the dream jobs for me would be to lecture in universities. And technically, with a master's degree, I am qualified to teach certain things, but when you're competing against people who have PhDs or they're enrolled onto doctoral programs while they're teaching, I just really don't have a chance of getting any of these types of jobs, because I'm not as qualified as all these other people. So for a few years I was applying for PhD placements, and I usually could only do it if there were scholarships open, because it's very expensive. So I was applying for these scholarship based places, which are even more competitive than just the PhD placements themselves. And my niche is horror, so the project and the research project I was proposing was horror related, and I discovered quite few lecturers that will take you on for a horror project. There aren't that many. I didn't realise how niche of a subject it is, like a genre subject, until I started doing this. And I was getting rejected, and I was fine with that, because every time I got a rejection I asked for feedback on why I was rejected, and I get really, really useful constructive feedback about, you know, the proposal wasn't up to scratch because of this and this, or I need to have done a way more research in this area to even propose the project, things like that. Really useful stuff I could use. And then I'm not going to mention the university in case I reapply there one day, but they've put me off ever applying there again, to be honest. But I applied for a creative writing PhD, which was a taught PhD, which is a bit different to like just a fully research one. So I had to submit a research project and also submit a writing sample. So the writing sample I submitted was a story that I had published by a press which is very reputable, and I thought that it was my best piece of work. I worked really hard on it. I was really proud of it. I was approached to be in this particular book, so I was really flattered, because this press is wonderful. And I don't want to say it here because I just feeling awkward about telling this story now. So this proposal was rejected, and that's absolutely fine. I'm fine with being rejected. I don't think that my work is so good that I couldn't possibly be rejected or anything like that. But how to explain this? I asked for feedback. The assistant said she'd get the feedback for me, and then she emailed me back with it, and it read like she was supposed to have like tidied it up and made it more professional, or like condensed it into something sounding a little more generic, because what I received was basically a rant about how I can't write for shit. And I'm not kidding. Like, I feel like I might have even been mildly traumatized by how horrible this was, because every other rejection I'd ever received was oh, your proposal needed to include this and this. We felt that your writing sample lacked this and this. We're actually looking for this with this project, but you're lacking these areas, whatever, right? This particular rejection ripped my research proposal to shreds in a way that was like almost mocking it. Like, the idea I'd had for the topic I wanted to research was absolutely ridiculous, and the proposal was shit and not at the professional level. So every aspect of that, but there was nothing constructive in it whatsoever. There was no, I hated it because it was just, I hate it, the quality is really low and no one would touch this subject, which I personally disagree with, because the thing about applying for a PhD is you kind of need a niche subject because you have to contribute something new to your field. So you can't pick something generic that everyone else writes about. You have to be sort of making some sort of point about something that isn't discussed very much, ideally. And the criticisms on the writing sample is what really killed me, because again, there was nothing constructive. She actually said that I couldn't write, that my story was awful, no reasons why, just that it's bad, basically. So yeah, I won't get bogged down in like the specifics, because if I think about that too hard again, I'll cry. But I cried and cried and cried. I was so shocked at that, like at how mean-spirited, and the tone of it was like they were offended that I'd even had the audacity to send this proposal in. And I'm pretty sure that I wasn't supposed to get that email. Like I feel like it was supposed to be altered so it wasn't so personal, you know? But, or maybe they did mean to send it to me and that's how they handle things at that particular university. But it killed me off, and I was so embarrassed about that I didn't even tell my husband that I'd been rejected, so he thought I was just still waiting to hear back, because I couldn't tell him, because it made me feel like so small. And after that I was invited, and around that time I was getting invited into a lot of anthologies, and I just started refusing paid writing work because I didn't think I was good enough. I was embarrassed about everything I'd ever written, and I didn't want to send anything to anyone. So I don't know, you know, it's a funny thing, because if I read a bad review of my work, I'm absolutely fine with it, because it's, you know, art subjective and everything. But just coming from a professional academic institution that's supposed to be impartial, and when you ask for feedback it's supposed to be constructive on how you could do the thing better next time, and they just tore into me and said I was a terrible writer, basically, with stupid ideas, and that the quality of everything I did was bad, it really knocked me, and I didn't write for quite a long time. That's the traumatic story about a time that I couldn't handle being, you know, savagely attacked for my writing ability. So this year, when I was at Chillicon last year, I bumped into Steve Shaw that runs Black Shuck Books, and he asked me if I would like to contribute or submit a short story collection for the Shadows series. And I'm a real big fan of Black Shuck Books. I own a lot of this stuff. I particularly love the Shadows series. I collect them. It's these books here. That's what I have so far in the Shadows collection. So he asked me if I'd like to contribute one. Even though I had no confidence in my writing anymore, I really couldn't turn down an opportunity like that. So I jumped at it, and then I spent basically a full year writing and rewriting and rewriting and redrafting and getting beta feedback and all of this stuff, and submitted it. And Steve was like, yep, I'll take it, it's great. And it was published on the 30th of November, and the response I had to it, sorry, I was not expecting to get emotional. The response, oh, for God's sake. I'm sorry, I'm quite an over-emotional person. I get easily overwhelmed. And thinking about this is stirring up the feelings that I had on release week. The response and the support that I had from the horror community that I love being a part of was so overwhelmingly positive and lovely that it's... Sorry, I've composed myself now. So I had no expectations for sales or reviews or anything going in. I learned from the last time not to have like lofty expectations about your book release and things, as indie publishing is very hard to be in. So I was just happy to have a book out and have it be out with a press that I love so much, and that in itself is really flattering to me. But people have been so great, and that was all really lovely and overwhelming, and just made me feel so warm inside, all that on its own. But then amongst the people that posted and raved about my book when they read it, I I don't know if this is okay to say, so I'm not going to like say the person's name in case they wouldn't want me to, but one of my favourite top 3 novelists of all time read and shared praise for my book, and it was like the single most flattering experience of my entire life, because what more can you ask for than one of your ultimate writing like idols being positive about something you've written? It was like, it was such a surreal moment, and maybe I am putting them on a pedestal, but I can't help it. That's the way I feel. Like, I've been reading this person's work for years, and the first time I ever met them, I embarrassed myself because I fangirled so hard, and I would like to think I've come past that now, and I'd like to think that we've made friends now, but you know, they're still one of my top 3 novelists of all time. So it was just I can't tell you what that meant. Oh no, I'm getting emotional again. Came back and I'm composed. I'm sorry, I don't know what's wrong with me today, I'm sorry. So having a book launch after so long and putting out a bit of work and getting over the sort of the self-esteem hurdle that was like holding me back, that was all already like a great achievement, even if no one bought the book. But yeah, the response from the horror community has like really sort of restored my love of writing, and it's just made such a huge difference. Oh, for God's sake. So just before I move on to the award for the best book of 2023, I want to just take this opportunity here to just say thank you so much to everyone that has supported me and been so kind. Okay, so last item of the day, this year's best book. So it could be anything, novel, short story collection, whatever. The options I had this year made this decision so much harder than I found it last year to decide this. I read Cunning Folk at the beginning of last year and I loved it so much, read the whole novel in one sitting, and I thought nothing's gonna top this, and I kept an open mind all year. There were a couple of really great books that I read, but nothing even touched Cunning Folk for me until I read The Vessel, which is also by Adam Nevill, so that made my decision about who to award the award to very easy. So this year, however, almost impossible for me to pick a favourite book. The only book that I read and reviewed this year that's excluded from being in the running is Tim Lebbon's Among the Living, and that is only because it's not actually going to be released until next year, so it'll be in the running for next year's award, but it didn't seem fair to put it in the running for this one when, you know, most people don't even have access to read it yet, but I'll pop a link for that in the description. So so deciding on my favourite book of this year was quite the painful experience. I discovered my favourite book series of all time. I read one of the greatest folk comedy horrors of all time this year. I read an amazing short that was about a town being overtaken by spiders that was amazing. Some truly scary and weird short story collections. Adam Nevill, I read some Adam Nevills that I hadn't read yet this year. It was I mean, the competition was just unlike anything I expected for trying to pick best book, but a best book I did pick, and it is Full Immersion by Gemma Amor. This book I have selected because, well, for numerous reasons actually. The book itself and what I think might be the future cultural impact of it. So let me explain a little bit. Full Immersion is about a woman called Magpie, nicknamed Magpie, who is suffering some very severe postnatal depression. It's tied into some other issues for her, but she's really mentally having a very, very hard time, and she applies for an experimental type of therapy, and it's a bit futuristic. It's a sci-fi horror, I would say. It's very hard to read in places. If you're someone that has dealt with any mental health issues that, you know, affect how you feel about yourself, it might be a good idea to just have a little look the book up first in case it might not be something that's for you right now. However, I really connected with it. I've never had children, I've never experienced postnatal depression, but they were, you know, I have had, you know, some anxiety issues and things like that in the past, and it really connected with me, and I felt like the mental illness part of this book was handled the most respectfully I've ever seen something of that theme handled especially in a horror novel. I've read a lot of horror novels that feature mental illness, and to be honest, 9 times out of 10 it's not done in either a very authentic or realistic way. And you know, stories where like mental illness was the villain all along, like it's not my bag, that kind of stuff, but here it was really deeply explored in a really like raw and honest way, which made it hard to read but totally compelling. And of course there's a sort of like surrealist aspect, sort of framing device to this book as well. The storytelling structure kept me really interested, along with the pacing. It really helped the pacing because we've got Magpie, who's like locked into this like virtual reality therapy type of thing, and then we've got the people in the control room, so it goes back and forth in and out of Magpie's perspective, and there are, you know, things going on in both realities. So it's, yeah, the tension and the tension was just so great because there was something building, and there was no way that I could have predicted. I mean, maybe other people have, but I certainly couldn't. No way that I could have predicted like where this was going to go. The scenes of horror, like outward horror, were amazing. Yeah, the horror scenes were the kind of things that have me like, you know, make me gleeful in the absolute horridness. So there's a lot to this book. It's you've got your A plot, which is Magpie on her sort of like journey of self-discovery, untangling her mental health issues, and it's really heavy and difficult. And then you've got this B plot of what is potentially going on outside of all of that, and it's equally as like you know, something ain't right. It's not right, you guys. And so yeah, the story itself and the book itself on its own would win this year for me. It's stayed with me thematically. It's very culturally significant, I think, and yeah, just I was fully immersed, you might say. Outside of the book itself, I feel like this is going to come to be regarded as an important piece of female written literature, and by that I mean it reminds me, I feel like it belongs in the same camp, with the same peer recognition as something like The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. It's such a poignant exploration and commentary of the UK mental health care system, also sort of like a social and medical commentary on how women in particular are treated with mental health conditions, particularly postnatal depression. The way that women are sort of othered by having any sort of mental distress. And obviously postnatal depression is a very specific disorder that only affects people that birth children, so there's a lot being said in this book, and it's just so honest and insightful and important, I really think, and I don't normally say that about much I read, and I think I'm going to be thinking about it for a really long time. And the other thing that I think is really important that Gemma created with this book is a sense of belonging and community that a lot of people don't know exists, because I went online after I read it to look for forums or conversations about this, and what I kept seeing over and over and over again were women who'd really struggled talking to each other about how this book made them feel seen. And I think that that's so important, because loneliness can be so destructive when you throw it on top of another issue as well. But with all this said, I really latched on to like the thematic tones, but this also is just a great work of horror as well. It's got the final scenes will not leave my mind, nor will the image of the weird, horrible antagonist that surfaces midway through. There are some really scary scenes in this, so yeah, I will be reaching out to Gemma Amor to let her know that she's won this. We will be sending her a little prize. Full Immersion is, in my opinion, the best book of 2023 that I read, against very, very stiff competition, I might add. Thank you for writing this, Gemma. I do think that this is probably going to be quite therapeutic for a lot of people to read, and I feel like a lot of people are going to really connect with this in a way that they don't normally. It certainly was a completely different reading experience for me. It's unlike anything I've ever read. Can't rate it highly enough. I'll put a link in the description for it. So that is the best book of 2023. Oh, can't wait to see what I'm going to read in 2024. I've had such a great year of reading. Okay, so that's it from me for this year. Last posting of the year. I will see you in the new year now, tomorrow, with a book review on the website, with more videos on the channel. I'm really looking forward to getting stuck into some new projects. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed. If you haven't subscribed, it might be a great time, you know, just press a little button there. Go on. Or shared or supported Happy Goat Horror, or just my personal stuff. If you've read or reviewed my book, thank you so much. This has been one of the greatest years that I've ever had. Cherry on top was I got married, so I've just been generally ecstatic for the whole of 2023. So yeah, you'd think I'd have thought of at least an ending for this video, being as it's the end of the year, but I haven't. So happy new year and bleed.